Okay, so like I said, we're going to go ahead and look at Genesis chapter 21 and Genesis chapter 22 today. So let's go ahead and read verses 1 and 2. If I don't have a text for this, but we've been talking about since it was Yom Teruah and stuff, you know what I mean? So my question for us is, y'all remember the Capital One commercials? They always ask you what's in your wallet. So I want to know what's coming out your trumpet. That's what I want to know. Okay, because we talked about an uncertain sound, right? So let's do that. Verses 1 and 2 of Genesis 21, please.
And Yahweh visited Sarah as he had said, and Yahweh did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which Elohim had spoken to him.
So it says here that he visited Sarah, and that as he had said, right, he did. And, even though she was old, and the scriptures say that she was past the custom of women, you know what I'm saying? That she conceived and she bore Abraham a son in his old age. And that's the thing that I think that we really need to remember. First and foremost, Yahweh always keeps his promises. Always, okay? He's not a man that he should lie. He's not the son of man that he should require repentance. He always keeps his promises. If he says that he's going to do something, he's going to do it. Okay? So we need to learn how to take him at his word, right? He told them, he said, look, I'm going to give you this. And he gave him this. He said, I'm going to take you to a land that flows with milk and honey. And he did that. I'm going to take you here and I'm going to do this for you. And I'm going to, and he, the thing is, he said that he was going to do all these things. And the problem is that the children of Israel had a real bad, they had a real bad problem seeing things that they couldn't take him at his word, although they had seen all the miracles and all this stuff that he had done for them in the desert, out there in the wilderness, bringing in the quail and bringing the manna from heaven and giving them water and doing all this stuff. And yet they couldn't see him for what he was. And that's really hard to when you think about it logically. Wow, he's doing this and this and this and this. So why would I doubt him? He's come through with everything he said he was. So why would I doubt him? But like I said, let's go to Isaiah 49 and 15. And I want to bring a point here. Like I said, he always keeps his promises.
Isaiah 49:15. Can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee.
So it's more like, now, ladies, those of you who are mothers, could you ever forget your children? I don't think so. Y'all went through a whole lot to get them here. You know what I mean? Could you forget them? I don't think so. But what the Father's saying here, he says, a woman may forget her child, but I'm not going to forget you. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. He's never going to forget us. He's not going to forget those that he's made his promise to. All right. Let's go to Hebrews 13 and 5.
Hebrews 13:5. Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have. For he has said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee.
So see, he said he's never going to leave us and he's never going to forsake us. So if he stood by all the things that he said back in the day, don't you think he's still going to stand by it? Scripture said that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? He said, I am Yahweh, I do not change. Therefore, you sons of Jacob are not consumed. Well, bless his holy name that he don't change, right? Because if he did, what are we even doing here? if he changes his mind about stuff, well, I mean, then what kind of direction do we have? Everything's left up to interpretation. You know what I'm saying? He's not moving back. He's not vacillating, right? That's a fancy word for moving, right? He's not shifting back and forth. He's not, this is not saying it's a rock, okay? The scripture says that we have so firm a foundation, all right? He doesn't change, all right? And that's what we need to remember. If he did it for them back then, he will do it for us today. That's the first point I want to make. He told Sarah, I'm going to come back here in due time, and you're going to have a child, right? And she was like, oh, I don't know about all that. You know what I'm saying? But that's what was said. But lo and behold, what do we see? She conceived at 90 years old. I don't know too many 90-year-olds that are conceiving these days, but he made her a promise, right? And the scriptures tell us that he's not slack concerning his promises, all right? If he makes the promise, he's going to fulfill it. As long as we do what? We got to keep up our end of the bargain, right? We got to keep up our part of we got to hold up our corner, right, Rebbe? That's what we got to do. How do we do that? We continue to love him. We continue to keep his commandments. We continue to walk. We continue to do the things that and that's how we're holding up our part of the bargain, right? There's another thing that this is point number 2 for this. So point number 1 was that he always keeps his promises, no matter what we think, no matter what it looks like to us, no matter how bad the odds are stacked against you, he keeps his promises. Okay. The second thing is, and this is where a lot of us get in trouble, is the fact that we don't think about it. And we try to hurry things up. Right? We talk about being part of that microwave generation, right? We want it, and we want it now. Since we talking about commercials. But the thing is, we got to remember that his time is always perfect, and he's always on time, regardless of whether we see it, whether we can see light at the end of the tunnel or not. He's always on time, and it's never going to show up early, and it's never going to show up late. Okay, that's what we need to. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 3:11. Everybody ought to know this scripture by now, right?
Ecclesiastes 3:11. He hath made everything beautiful in his time.
Okay, hold on for just a second. So it says there that he makes everything beautiful when? According to my timeline? No. In his time, right? He told Sarah, he said, I'm going to come back. And when I do, you know what I mean? You're going to have this youngin'. But it was not, hey, Sarah, if you're ready for it, right? He said, this is what's going to happen. How long did they wait for the son to show up? A long time. Okay? So that's the thing. We got to remember that it's all in his time. We may be in a spot where we think that, well, I've waited and waited and waited and waited. Well, you know what? You may have to just wait a little longer, but it's coming because he promised it. Okay? Let's go to Psalms 121:4.
Psalms 121:4. Behold, he that keep Israel shall neither sleep nor slumber.
See? And he's going to keep it because why? He doesn't slumber or sleep. He's not going to forget about it. He said, you know what I mean? The Father ain't taking a nap. It's like that with the, remember what that one, probably he said, for he's Elohim. Maybe he's sleeping. Maybe he's on a journey. Maybe he's covering his feet. You know what I mean? The point is, he doesn't do that. All right? Our needs are constantly before him. And that's what he said back there in Isaiah. He said, your walls are ever before me. So what I'm trying to say is, let's not try to hurry things up. And let's not, because we talked about last night, this right here, this is the trumpet that we've got with us all the time, correct? So when I say that his promises are sure, that's a certain sound coming out, right? When I say that what he has said he's faithful to do, that's a certain sound coming out. But when I'm hemming and hawing, I don't know. I mean, I've been, I'm just not sure. I don't know if he's hearing me. That's an uncertain sound. And the scriptures, when you have an uncertain sound, the people that you're speaking to, they're not going to know what you're trying to say. They're not going to know what type of message you're trying to bring out. Are you boo-hooing and poor mouthing? You know what I mean? Or are you proclaiming the good things that he has for us? I said, we ain't all walking around with a silver trumpet or a shofar in our pocket, but we all have this trumpet right here that's at the bottom of our face. And we got this one with us 24 hours a day. So like I said, when we're talking, let's remember, A, that he always keeps his promises, and B, that he's always on time. There used to be an old song back in the church said, he's the on time L. I'm going to clean it up in just a minute. But that's what I'm saying. He's always on time. May not be according to my time, may not be according to yours, but he's always on time. So let's remember that. Okay. Verse 3, Chris.
Genesis 21:3. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac.
Okay. So it says here that Abram called the name of his son that was born to him, Isaac, or Yitzhak, right? We talk about the El of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, right? Yitzhak. All right. That means to laugh. Okay. To laugh. Remember, because it says that Sarah laughed about it when she heard it. When she heard the news that she was going to have a baby, she thought that was the funniest thing she ever heard. But here's the thing. The word Yitzhak means to laugh, and it means to laugh in merriment or in happiness, but it can also mean to mock. So here's the thing. This news brought joy to Abraham, right? He was laughing in merriment because he said, I know that he made this promise and that he's going to keep it. And I'm going to be a daddy, and I'm all these promises that he made. So he was laughing, or he was inside, he had joy in his heart, right? So to name the child Isaac or Yitzhak, because of the merriment or the joy that was in his heart. But it also speaks to the ridicule that came out of the trumpet of Sarah, right? Sarah's like, are you kidding me? I'm 90 years old. My husband's 100. Am I to have pleasure after, you know what I mean? All this kind of stuff, right? Let's go to Genesis 18 and let's read verses 9 through 15.
Genesis 18:9 through 15. And they said unto him, where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken with age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my master being old also? And Yahweh said unto Abraham, wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of a surety bear a child, which I am old? Is anything too hard for Yahweh? At the time appointed, I will return unto thee, according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh.
Okay, so here's the thing. So where was Sarah at? He was out here with the visitors. She's back in the tent. She heard what he said and she laughed within herself. And what did he say? He said, why did she laugh? And Abraham's like, how could he hear her? That, you know what I mean? When she laughed, here's the thing here. Now, it says that the word that's used here is the word tzachach. Okay. Tzachach. Now it's close to yitzach. Right. And it means to laugh as well. But what it means is to laugh in scorn. So she's dismissing this whole thing. This dude is crazy. I'm 90 years old. My husband's 100. How am I going to, you know what I'm saying? So she was laughing in scorn. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We do that kind of stuff, don't we? You know what I mean? We hear something and we're like, man, get out of here with that. That's crazy. And we laugh and we scorn it. But see, he heard what she did inside herself when he's outside. And then she comes and she's, oh, I didn't laugh. And what's he tell her? Oh, yes, you did. He's like, you doubting me. You have doubted me. Right? But see, that's the thing. This news brought Abraham joy, but it brought scorn and ridicule from Sarah. Abraham's out here with the messengers and he sees them. He knows, right? He knows who this is. Think about it. He knows. Abraham was pretty sharp cookie sometimes. He made some mistakes. We all do, right? But he knew who was sitting here. But all she could see was the temporal things, right? I'm old. My husband's older than me. It has ceased to be with me after the manner of women. How in the world is that going to happen? But see, he knew. He said, and he knew exactly where her laughter came from. And here's the problem. Sometimes we think we know it all. We think we got it all sewn up in a bag, right? And we all do this. Sometimes we think we know everything. All right. But when we fail to listen and we fail to believe his promises, we're doing exactly like Sarah did. All right. And just like the children of Israel did when they were out in the wilderness. Now, we talk about them a lot because the scriptures tell us, that all these things that they did, that they were there for examples so that we don't do the same things that they did. But how many times do we do exactly the same thing they did? How many times do we say, oh, my problem's too big for him. I can't see a way out of it, so he can't possibly be able to get me out of it. Well, that's where we made our first big mistake. We trusted these eyes instead of trusting him. All right. What did they say when they were out there? And like I said, we've talked about this. They had so many flocks and herds and all this kind of stuff. But what did they do? They go to Moses talking, we're dying. We're starving. We don't have anything to eat. We wish we was back in Egypt, sitting by the flesh pots and fooling themselves because they weren't fooling anybody else except for themselves because they didn't have none of that stuff. They was lucky to get the little bit that they got. They didn't have all the leeks and the melons and the garlics and the onions. They didn't have none of that stuff. That wasn't for them because they were slaves, right? What'd they say? Can Yahweh prepare us a table in the wilderness? Does that not sound like not trusting him? Does that sound like, well, if we can't do it, then he certainly can't do it? After he had brought them through the Red Sea and brought all these plagues and all this kind of, do you see what I'm saying? They they had the attention span of a goldfish. They really, really did. And they couldn't see any further than the end of their nose. So what am I telling us? I'm telling us that even in uncertain times, okay, when we can't see a way out of it, that's when we need to lean into him harder than ever before. All right. Even in these uncertain times, we need to rejoice and laugh in merriment, right? We need to be joyful because when he makes a promise, right? The word tells us in 2 Corinthians 1 and 20, it says that all of his promises are yea and amen. That means that that's a done deal. You can take that to the bank, right? Because that's a check that ain't going to bounce. If he tells you he's going to do it, he'll do it. And that's the sound, you know what I mean? Yahweh, this is the trumpet that I'm talking about. Yahweh, I can't see a way out of this thing, but I know that you are able to save. I know that you are well able. Like you remember what Joshua and Caleb said? We are well able to take the land. But the rest of them didn't want to hear it, right? They were giving out an uncertain sound. But Joshua and Caleb were saying, hey, we can do this. We got Yahweh with us. It's his fight, not ours. All we got to do is walk in and take it. Let's remember, he has not failed us one time. He didn't fail them at all, ever. And he will never fail. He can't ever fail. The only reason why we don't see things any sooner in our lives is because we tie his hands. Amen? We tie his hands. It's not that he doesn't want to do it for us, but we make it so that he can't. We can stop him quicker than anything. And there's nothing in the universe can stop him except for us. Our lack of faith, right? Our unwillingness to listen. He wants to bless us. He wants to do things for us, but we tie his hands. And another reason why I think that he was named Yitzhak, this is just me thinking, I really believe that it was done, that he was named that to kind of remind Sarah, hey, you laughed about this, but every time you say his name, it's going to make you think. I should have never doubted. I should have, because he will put an example out there, right? So I think a lot, I really do. I think that Abraham named him Yitzhak to kind of just remind her, hey, and again, for himself, he had to remember this son right here that was, promised to him. Right? So, like I said, we got to remember, let's think about it. Let's not doubt him. Don't let that uncertain sound come out of your mouth. He said he'll do it. He's going to do it. And there's nothing that's too big for him. That's what we got to remember too. Because a lot of times we think, oh, that's too big for Yahweh. Man, take a look around you. Look what he created. Right? Look at us ourselves. We are complicated machines. Right? This organ does this and that and blah, 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 and we live and breathe and we create or make other complicated machines. We're a pretty complicated machine ourselves. You know what I'm saying? But that's what we need to remember. We cannot afford to doubt him. I say this all the time, but I really feel this way. We need to learn how to get out of the way and let him handle it. Now, I'm not guilt-free in this. Okay. There's always been times when I've been like, man, this just ain't happening. And get crazy and, think weird thoughts and stuff like that. And it's just like, stop. With the bad brain, right? Just stop. Okay. You can't fix this situation. So let him handle it. And I promise you, when he does, it's going to be the right thing, going to be the right time. And it's, what I mean? And it's on its way. Just hold out just a little bit longer. Chris, read verse number 4, please.
Genesis 21:4. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as Elohim had commanded him.
Ooh, Abraham's much of a man, because I don't think I could have done it. I don't want to be cutting on nobody, but it says here that Isaac was circumcised when? On the 8th day. Okay. So we know that in the scriptures that the number 8 speaks to us of new beginnings. Okay. And so with Isaac, him being circumcised on the 8th day, this was a new beginning, right? The beginning of him walking under the Abrahamic covenant, because that's what circumcision is, right? All right. It's the Abrahamic covenant. So why is this important? I'm going to tell you. All right. Now, we've heard plenty of people talk about this particular operation. Okay. We've heard them talk about it. Well, you don't have to be circumcised to be saved, blah, 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 blah. No, you don't. Okay. But the point is, it's just like if you're not, and you begin to walk this way and you begin to read and you begin to ingest it and it gets down in you and you're wanting to do the things then you're going to want to do it, right? Because it's the right thing to do. Here's the second part of this. Why is it important? Because if you want the blessings of the Abrahamic covenant, all right, if you want the blessings of Abraham, you have got to be under the same covenant. I'm not saying he can't bless you if you're not circumcised. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is if you want the blessings that he promised to Abraham, you need to be. You better be, right? Scriptures tell us that if you're not circumcised in the heart, right, or in the flesh, you can't come into his temple. You can't come into his holy place, right? No stranger uncircumcised in the flesh or in the heart. That's what it says. So here's the thing. If you want to be counted in that number, you want to be under the Abrahamic covenant, the promises, the blessings. If you want those, you need to have it done. Sometimes people don't have it done for certain reasons, whatever. Okay. I'm not, but while I'm telling you what it says here. I mean, just be thankful you ain't got to do it on yourself. Right. remember Abraham with a sharp rock, you know what I mean? So anyway, like I said, I'm not telling you that you can't be saved. It's just like when they were talking to the new believers, right? They told them that they had to be circumcised before they could be saved. That's not the case. Okay. Yeah, that's in Acts chapter 15. That's not the case. But what it is if you want these promises, then you need to be. Some folks have it done at birth. They ain't got nothing to say about it. Some folks have it done later on in their teenage years. Some folks have it done when they're older. Okay. But the thing is, if it's in your heart to do it, or if the word is in your heart, then it will be in your heart to do it. If you want to please the Father, you want to be under the covenant, it's a thing that has to be done. Enough about that. All right. Chris, read verses 6 and 7, please.
Genesis 21, 6, 7. And Sarah said, Elohim hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should be given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age.
Okay, so it says here, Sarah now says, Elohim has made me to rejoice. All right. So now she's happy. Now she's laughing. But this laughter is different. This is the laughter of assuredness. This is the laughter of, wow, he said he would do it and he did. This is not, and it's not scorn. You know what I mean? It's relief and true happiness and joyfulness. And you see what I'm saying? She said, who would have thought? As we'd say here, who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? All right? Who would have thought that in my old age that I would have given Abraham a son? So, like I said, going back to the beginning, what is impossible with man, right, is completely possible with Yahweh. All right. But you see, now what's coming out of her trumpet? Now it's praise and joyfulness and all. Do you see what I'm saying? So the uncertain sound that was coming out before has now become a pure sound, a certain sound. It's become what it's supposed to be. And that's, we're supposed to have praise for him continually in our mouths. Right? Isn't that what the scriptures tell us? All right. It says that we, that his praise is to be continually in our mouth. That's what's supposed to go. Before we speak about any situation that we may find ourselves in, we need to make sure that before it comes out of this trumpet bell, before it comes out of this mouth, I gotta have my focus right. Okay. And there's a big difference. If you gave Chris and I one of those trumpets each, and we both blew it, we both blew the trumpet, I guarantee you'd know which one was me and which one was him. Because his frequency is a whole lot better than mine is. Mine is an uncertain sound, but his is much better. But see, that's what I'm saying. We need to make sure the sound that's coming out of this mouth here, out of this trumpet, right? We need to make sure of that sound before it escapes, before it comes out. Because scriptures say, if I blow an uncertain sound, right? Who's going to know? Who's going to know that it's time for the battle? And isn't that how they called them out to fight? They blew the trumpets. They blew an alarm. The ones on the east side came out first, south side, west side. But the thing is, they had to have that trumpet had to be sure. That alarm had to be sure. But if I'm bad mouthing and poor mouthing and oh boo-hoo and poor pitiful me, that's not a sound of battle. That's a sound of surrender. That's a sound of I'm just going to roll over and die, is what that is. Talked about Jericho last night. All they did was march around it, right? They marched around the city. And he told the people, he said, don't say a word. But on the seventh day, I'm going to tell you to shout. And when I do, shout. And that brought the walls down, didn't it? Okay. Talked about Gideon last night. Said that shout and those trumpets and all this, that confused the enemy so bad that some of them run off. Most of them run off. But it even says that some of them set their swords on each other. They were so confused they were killing each other. Gideon and them didn't even have to step in because they were killing each other and taking, and then they see the bodies in the camp and they're like, oh my gosh, they're on us, and they took off running. But that's why we have to make sure of what's coming out of our mouth before it comes out. Verse 8, please.
Genesis 21:8. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast the same day that Isaac was weaned.
Okay, so it says here that he grew and he was weaned, right? And then Abraham threw a big party, had a huge feast, right? Well, that's because he saw yet another step in his son's life. All right. So he was weaned. Now it's time for him to begin on solid food and start to grow and learn things and become a man and all. And I'm sure he saw this all the way down the line. He just saw the whole thing. And he was rejoicing because of this new step in the life of his son. And don't you know that the Father does the same thing for us? The scriptures tell us that whenever that heaven rejoices, right? Whenever we grow and when we move forward, right? Chris, could you read Luke 15:7, please?
Luke 15:7. I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repents, more than over 99 just persons, which need no repentance.
Okay, so when we grow and we move forward and we're victorious over the power of Hasatan, scriptures say that the heavens rejoice. When we come out from under that yoke of bondage, right? And we move on in our life because we know that the scriptures say to him that overcomes, right? And overcoming is not something you do one time. This is an everyday thing. All right. It's an everyday thing. We have things that we have to overcome every day. We got to overcome the world. We got to overcome the flesh. We got to overcome the devil. We got to overcome ourselves. We got to overcome our bad brain. We got to overcome people, places, and things. There's a lot of we got to overcome all these things. And he likes it when he sees us moving forward. Scriptures say that anyone who sets his hand to the plow and does what? Turns back is unfit for the kingdom. So we got to keep moving forward. We can't stop. We can't go backwards, right? We got to keep moving forward. And the only way we move forward is by overcoming ourselves, the world, the flesh, the devil, all these. We got to overcome these things every day, right? And that includes the image, the images that we set for ourselves in our minds. Okay? No matter how desolate it looks. He brought them quail in the wilderness, right? He got them water out of the rock. Sent them manna, bread from heaven. I don't know about y'all, but I've never seen manna. I've never seen quails up to the horses' bridles. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen any of that. But I have faith that because he said it, that he could do it. And it's the same in our lives. The world is different than it used to be, but he has not changed. He hasn't changed. All right. So I bet you that when a person does come to the truth, when a person does um, give up their worldly way and give their life to him, it says that heaven rejoices over that one. I bet there's a whole lot of horn blowing going on in the throne room. Wouldn't you think? I mean, that's a thing. They said when you have your celebrations and you blow the trumpets. Well, if we're supposed to do it down here, don't you think they're doing it up there? You better believe it, right? Because everything we have down here is a reflection of what? Of what's up in heaven. So if we're to do it here, we're doing it after the heavenly pattern. So I'm sure they're blowing some trumpets up there too. All right. All right. So let's go to verses 9 through 13.
Genesis 21, 9 through 13. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had born unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And Elohim said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman. And all that Sarah has said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac thy seed be called. And also the son of the bondwoman I will make a nation, because he is thy seed.
Okay, so it says here that Ishmael, right, the son of Hagar, that he was mocking Isaac. There's a lot of conjecture about what he was really doing. Could be making fun of him. Could be, hey, your mama's old and mine's young. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows? Kids say some weird stuff. You know what I'm saying? But the scriptures tell us that he was mocking. I've even heard some way out stuff there. But anyway, here's the thing for us to remember. There's nothing new under the sun, right? So just as Ishmael mocked Isaac, there's those that mock us as well. Okay. We're mocked by our brethren. We're mocked by the Yudim, right? We're mocked by our families. Amen. We're mocked by the church. We're mocked by the world. It's what I was talking about just a few minutes ago about having to overcome things, right? And if you sit back and you looked at how many people talk about you, if you knew how many people talk about you behind your back or whatever, it would be discouraging. Because most of us want people to like us. You know what I'm saying? Well, I said most of us, okay? You just were an old tough Baldwin Parky, but what I'm talking about, most people want folks to like them. All right. But you name it. I mean, the scriptures say, for your sake, we're like lambs, we're slaughtered all day long. And they may not be killing us with a knife, but they may be killing us with their words. That tongue will kill you. That thing is full of poison. But just like Isaac, we have to remember that we're part of the promise, right? We're under Abraham's covenant, so we're part of the promise. All right? We're part of the promised seed. We're part of the chosen people. We're part of the royal priesthood. We're part of the holy nation. Okay? We talked about that last night. And we got to remember that in Isaac, Abraham's seed will be counted. Okay? So, Chris, let's go to Matthew 5, 10, and 10 through 12, please.
Matthew 5, 10 through 12. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you.
So Yahushua said, if they're going to mock you, let them mock you. That's okay. Look what they did to him. Right? No servant is greater than his master. And if they did these things in the green tree, what are they going to do in the dry? Okay? So let's remember, it's a whole lot easier for people just to talk about you behind your back and do all this stuff than what they did to our master. Ain't nobody trying to string you up on a stake and nail you to a post and all this. Ain't nobody trying to do that to us, okay? We got it pretty good, honestly. So if they are going to mock, let them mock. That's okay. That should just make us, that should just give us some more spizzerinctum, right, Rebbe? That should just strengthen us a little bit. Because if they made fun of our master, if they mocked him, if they ridiculed him, what did it say? It said, rejoice when all men shall persecute you and revile you, right? Because you happen to be carrying his name. That's all right. Because in that name, there are joy forevermore. And yes, Ishmael is the seed of Isaac, or the seed of Abraham, I mean. And he wasn't the promised child, but he's still carrying Abraham's blood, right? And it said that he would give him a blessing too. But we got to remember that there's a greater reward for the child of promise. Right? Because in Abraham or in Isaac, Abraham's seed would be numbered. So that makes Isaac, even though he was born second, he's the Bechor, right? Because he was the promised child. And the thing is, we've read all through this book. And when we read all the way through to the end, the greatest part is we can see that we have the last laugh. See what I did there? Because we're talking about laughing. We have the last laugh, right? So let them revile, let them persecute, let them do what they're going to do. You can't change it anyway, right? So we need to keep our mind straight. Let's keep our eyes on the prize, right? What's the entire thrust of this whole thing? To make it to the end. Because if we don't make it to the end, scriptures say that those who endure to the end shall be saved. So if we don't make it to the end, we're not going to be saved. If we don't endure, right? Endure doesn't mean get knocked down and sit there. Endure means get knocked down, get back up, dust yourself off, go at it again. You know what I mean? That's what it means. Right? Scriptures tell us that a righteous man fails how many times? He fails 7 times. But what does he do? He gets up, right? And he continues to work at it. And that's where we're at. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So we can't go 99.99999% of the way. right? We got to go 100% in order to make it. So that's the thing. We ain't gonna make it at 99 and 44/100%. All right. Read verses 14 through 17, please. Verses 14 through 17.
Scroll down a little bit more. There we go. Genesis 21, 14 through 17. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water was spent in the bottle, and she cast the child under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat her down over against him a good way off, as if it were a bow shot. For she said, let me not see the death of the child. And she sat over against him and lifted up her voice and wept. And Elohim heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of Elohim called Hagar out of heaven, and said unto her, what aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for Elohim hath heard the voice of the lad where he is.
So here's what I want. So she's in a really, really bad spot, wandering in the desert, doesn't have any direction. The bread's gone, the water's gone, and she's just sure that they're going to die. But what I want to assure you is that he can still hear us, right? He can still hear us even when we're lost in the desert. You know, and even if we're walking contrary to him, he can still hear us. All right. What's it say in 2 Chronicles 7 and 14? This gets me because you see it in people's front yards and stuff all the time on little signs and everything, but they're missing a big part of this whole thing. 2 Chronicles 7 and 14.
If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land.
Okay. So you got to be called by his name, right? Right? You got to be called by his name, not by a title. All right. And then what? Seek his face. You got to pray. You got to seek his face and turn from your wicked ways. That don't mean go ahead and do all whatever you want to do. All right. But this is what I'm saying. He hears you. He hears us. All right. He's still there. Even when we may be in the lowest place that we've ever been. But you know what? He still hears you. All right. And he can reach you. See, this is what I'm talking about with the brain, the bad brain, when it plays tricks on us, right? Because he can reach us even when we think that we're unreachable. I'm down so far in the hole that there's no possible way I can get myself out. Well, you're right. You can't get yourself out. Right? It's going to take him to do it. Chris, go to Psalm 139, 7 through 12. See, there's nowhere that we can be that he can't find us.
Psalms 139, 7 through 12. Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light about me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day, and the darkness and the light are both alike to thee.
See? So it don't matter where you are. Doesn't matter because if you go into heaven, he's going to be there. If you go down into the belly of the earth, guess what? He knows where you're at. He made it too. Right? If I go and I get in a submarine and I get down in the bottom of the ocean, he knows where I'm at. Right? Like I said, if I took the wings in the morning and I just flew wherever, he still knows where I am. And it's kind of like in Ezekiel chapter 8, where those guys was in that room where it said that they was in the room of their images, right? And they said, Yahweh doesn't see us. Yahweh's forsaking the earth. Well, I got news for you. He knows where you're at all the time. Okay. The scriptures or the word is omnipotent. He's omniscient. Omniscient means he knows everything. Okay. We think that we getting over, and we think that we're getting around, but we don't, do we? And so here's the thing. It don't matter where you are. He can find you. All right. So these guys are in the room of their imagery saying that Yahweh doesn't see us. He's forsaken the earth. Well, he just told us earlier that he would never leave us or forsake us. Right? He said that Jerusalem's walls are ever before him. So he hasn't forsaken nothing. All right. And the psalmist even said that day and night are the same to you. So it don't matter how dark it is. It's going to light up just like daylight. And he'll see what you do or what you've done, you know. But that's what we have to remember. If we want to walk with him, we've got to turn, right? We got to turn from our ways, the ways of our hearts, because the scriptures say that the heart is what? Desperately wicked. And he said, turn from their wicked ways. Quit doing after the things of your own heart and do after the things that he wants us to do. That's what he's saying. Don't think I can't see you, and I can get you wherever you are. And so we see in verse 18, it says here that he is blessed, that Ishmael's blessed because why? For Abraham's sake. All right. So he was, he said that I was going to bless him. And he did make him a great nation. So yes, he did bless it. But it wasn't because, it wasn't because of anything. It was simply because Abraham was his daddy. But it's nothing like the blessing that he had for Isaac and for Isaac's line. What's it say about Ishmael and Esau? They'd be a wild man. Okay, Ishmael's a wild man. And his hand will always be against his brothers, and and all. But he did bless them in the fact that he didn't allow their name to disappear from the earth. But that's all it got him. That's all it got him. So I'm going to go on to verse 21. And verse 21 says that it says, and he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. Mistake number one. Okay. So Egypt was really all that Hagar ever knew, where she was from. And she didn't assimilate. She was an Egyptian. It doesn't say Hagar the Hebrew, right? It calls her an Egyptian because it was always in her. And that's what she knew. So that's what she returned to. And it's like it says, like the true proverb, right? A dog returning to its vomit, or a sow that was washed returning to the mire, right? To wallowing in the mire. What you know is what you will do. And if you know bad mouthing and oh, poor pitiful me and all that kind of stuff when you're being beset upon, that's what you're going to do. That's what man knows to do. It's unfair. This ain't right. La la la, cry, poor pitiful me. Get in the pit and have a fit, right? But that's not what we're supposed to do. But since Egypt was what she knew, that's what she went back to. All right. And then this led to Ishmael doing what? Marrying into Egypt. All right. Doing all kinds of things, including pursuing worship of false Elohim. All right. And all that kind of stuff. Because Egypt, for a long time, had been doing that kind of thing. And magic and sorcery and all kinds of that kind of stuff. Been doing all of that. But here's what I want you to know. Now, Ishmael is carrying Abraham's blood, right? But it don't matter whose blood you got in your veins. Just like it don't matter what tribe you're from. Or if you're even from one. It doesn't matter. Right? Scripture say he made from one blood all men. Okay? So here's the thing. It doesn't matter what bloodline you come from. You can still be estranged from Israel. Just like Ishmael was. All right? There was a time, it was a few years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was John Hagee. He comes out with some stuff that John Hagee did. He came out and said that Jews, Yudim, do not have to accept Messiah to be saved because they have the blood of Abraham. That's what he said. Y'all think I'm kidding? Look it up. But he said that they don't need Messiah. All right. And that's what we call dual covenant theology. And that is wrong. All right. But that's what he said. He said that because they're the blood of Abraham, because they're the seed of Abraham, they don't have to have Messiah. But that don't make any sense. Because Yahushua said, no man comes to the Father, but how? Through me, by me. So you got to have it. He said, if you don't have the Son, you don't have the Father. Amen? So if that was true, that makes Yahushua a liar. So what I'm saying is what John Hagee was saying. If that makes that true, then it makes the Messiah a liar. All right? So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. You could be born to the house of Judah. That's fine. Right? That's fine. I don't carry no more weight than anything else. All right? They did. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them died in the wilderness too. All right? What we need to do is we need to quit worrying about the physical blood. We need to get that transfusion, right? We need the blood of Moshiach because that's the thing that makes us, that makes him see his son in us. And that's what we need. You don't want to be estranged from Israel, do you? Right? And we know that Israel's good because it says that there's 12 gates. And there's the name of a tribe on every one of them. Would I like to know which tribe I'm from? Yeah, sure. But I'll find out when I get there. I'm not setting everything on, well, I'm from this tribe. I don't have a clue. I may not be from any of them. That's okay. All right. The point is that he's made a place for me. And that's all that really matters. But if I don't have the Son, then there's no place for me there. Regardless, I could be 100% from Judah or Levi or what. Wouldn't make any difference. Would not make a bit of difference, right? It ain't the blood you got in your veins. It's the blood that's on you, the blood that's been applied to your heart. That's what gets you in. That's what makes the difference. Would y'all agree with that? Good. Because that's Bible. That ain't me saying it. That's the word. Okay? Scripture say if you try to come into the sheepfold another way, You got to come through the door, right? If you try to come in any other way, you're a thief and a robber. All right. All right. So we're gonna hold right there. So, like I said, we left off uh, talking about Ishmael and Hagar going back to Egypt. And like I said, what we know is what we return to. And if we don't take the things that maybe we were raised with, some of us were raised with certain things, you know, societally and culturally, if we don't take those things, and when we begin to walk after Yahweh, when we begin to walk the life of a Hebrew, when we walk the life of an Israelite, we can't continue to hold on to those old things, right? Because we'll never get out of the place where we once were. It's just like, uh, if you have a hard time with drugs or alcohol or whatever, and you go receive treatment from it and you get clean, you don't turn around after you get out of there and then go back to the bar or go back to the crack house or whatever, that you go right back to that stuff. So that's the thing. We know what's in us, and what we choose to feed, that's what's going to grow. So, like I said, that was all that Hagar knew. So that's what she went back to. Chris, can you read verses 22 through 26, please?
Genesis 21, 22 through 26. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Pichol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, Elohim is with thee in all that thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here by Elohim that thou wilt not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor with my son's son. But according to the kindness that I have shown unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I would not who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it but today.
It's a difficult one to get. Neither yet had I heard of it. It's it's tough sometimes. But what we see here is Abraham and Abimelech, and we know that they've already had some run-ins in the past, right? Over Sarah, and because Sarah was Abraham's wife, and he said, "This is my sister," which, in a way, she was, you know what I mean, but she also was his wife. But still, I mean, half a lie is still a lie, you know what I mean? So anyway, but they had a run in, and Abraham actually came out very well from his dealings with Abimelech. So the thing is here that there was a well of water that they were disputing over. And of course, you can think, yeah, out in the desert, wells are very, very, yeah, I mean, they're worth more than gold. You know what I'm saying? But apparently, there was a well that had been dug, and it had been taken away by Abimelech's servants. And the thing is, it was taken away by his servants, but he didn't know about it, right? But this is like it talks about a sin of ignorance, right? When you can't be, you're not going to be held accountable for it, until you find out. But after you find out, then you need to do something about it, right? So, like I said, he didn't know who did it, but by he and Abraham discussing it, again, we're talking about this trumpet, right? So Abraham could have been upset. He probably was. But when he was dealing with Abimelech, who of course is a king, but he didn't get crazy and he didn't get all sideways about it. You know what I mean? He said, look, this is what happened. And Abimelech was like, well, I just found out about it. I didn't know, you know, nobody told me. I just found out. But, here they are attempting to work together to figure out a solution. And again, that's with us. We should always be open to trying to uh, talk things out. In fact, it says, if we see a brother in a fault, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to go to them, not go lambasting them and blowing our trumpet about all their shortcomings and misdeeds out on the Facebook or the Instagram or the Twitter or the whatever. We ain't supposed to be doing all that kind of stuff. We're supposed to go to them and say, hey, look, this is a problem. And then if they don't listen, well, then you take a couple more people with you, and we all know how it goes. But the point is, we're not to be trumpeting their failures or shortcomings. We're supposed to be there to try and help each other and to help build each other up, not to tear each other down, right? So that's the thing. Now, here again, they had already had a little bit of, they had some history. A few chapters ahead or behind where we're at now, they had some history, but they were still able to be civil with each other. And again, Abraham was blessed by the restitution that Abimelech was trying to do. He was trying to fix the problem. So anyway, like I said, when we deal with each other, let's try to do it in a civil manner. Let's try to keep our voices down. Let's try to, let's do that. Let's work together. Because sometimes, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes somebody may have done something that you don't know anything about, and somebody comes to you about it. So, like I said, instead of blasting somebody or, putting them out on Front Street, let's try to work things, in a much more subtle way. 28 through 32.
Genesis 21, 28 through 32. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said unto Abraham, what mean these 7 ewe lambs which thou hast set by themselves? And he said, for these 7 ewe lambs shalt thou take of my hand, that they may be a witness unto me that I have digged this well. Wherefore he called that place Beersheba, because they swear both of them. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up, and Pichol, the chief captain of his host, and they returned to the land of the Philistines.
Okay, so what we have here is, like I said, they had this civil meeting, right? And then there was some peaceful settling of the matter. Okay, go to Romans 12 and 18.
Romans 12 and 18. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men.
See, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, the scriptures say, blessed are the peacemakers, right? So we're not supposed to try and start no mess. All right. So here, Abraham had cause to be upset, but they settled it in a peaceful manner. And we see that Abraham actually took the low road here, right? Because it was his well, but it was taken away by Abimelech's servants. So here's the thing. Abraham said, you know what? It's not worth causing an issue, causing a schism, or, however you want to pronounce it. So what he did was he took the low road in this matter. And a lot of times we have to do the same thing. Sometimes we need to take the low road in order to keep the peace. That's part of being a servant. But we also need to remember, that, Moshe, David, all right, even Yahushua himself, there was a lion side, right? And it's got to come out every now and again. You know what I mean? It's got to, you know, Yahushua grabbed him some cords and whooped up a whole bunch of folks with the money changers and stuff, didn't he? And there were times when, he had to call it like it was. So, we're not to be doormats, but we're also not to be, brawling all the time either. You know what I'm saying? We have to weigh the situation and we have to discern what is the proper way to handle it. And again, what's coming out of our trumpet here? What's going to come out of our mouth? Are we going to, take the low place and say, hey, you know what? In order to keep the peace here so that we don't cause it doesn't, here's what I'm willing to do, and be willing to negotiate and talk. Sometimes there's just people are just downright wrong. I promise you, I try to be as calm and peaceful as I can be. But, if there comes a time when if somebody threatened my family or whatever like that, well, then, it's going to be a whole different story. But, in my dealings with other people, on an everyday basis, I do my best to try and to keep, to keep things on an even keel and to be, nice about people. Let's go to Ephesians 4:26. Like I said, we got to let it out every now and again. He doesn't expect us to just get walked on all the time.
Ephesians 4:26. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath.
Okay, so we can be angry, right? But we got to remember, we got to know when does that anger, when does it tip us over into sin? So we've got to make sure that we're paying attention to what we do and what we say, and how it comes out. And because the scriptures say that, in words, we offend many. So we need to be careful of what we say and how we say it, and mannerisms and things like that too. But like I said, we got to know when it's getting out of control, right? Because we don't want what's coming out of our mouth to bring a reproach on the Father, because that's what it's going to do. People see you, they know who you proclaim to follow, and then when your deeds are not matching up with your words or the image that then it gives out an uncertain sound. Gives out an uncertain sound or an uncertain signal. Verse 33, please.
Genesis 21:33. And Abraham planted a grove in Beersheba and called there on the name of Yahweh El Olam.
Okay, so I saw this morning and I thought, well, we better clarify that, because most people, when we talk about a grove, we're talking about pagan worship, and that makes it sound like he planted a bunch of, he set up some totem poles and all that kind of stuff. But that nothing could be farther from the truth. So if we look at the word that's used there, it's the word eshel. Eshel means like a group of tamarind trees or fruit trees or something like that. Okay, something that's going to sustain life, actual trees. Yeah, an orchard would be a better, it's a group of trees. Yes, a grove is a group of trees, okay? But these were more like an orchard. This would be more a tree, a group of trees that would have fruit, or that would, they would produce food for a household. Okay. The word like what we normally see, like in where it talks about in the book of Kings, where it talks about that he went in and cut down the groves. That's the word Ashra, which is also translated as groves But it's also named after a Phoenician deity, who was like a deity of what's the word? Like um, reproduction, fertility. That's it. That's what. Thank you. So, these poles that, or these trees that Abraham planted were trees that were going to sustain life. The ones that Asa and them, when Hezekiah and all them cut down, those were poles that were decorated for pagan worship. So let's not get it twisted. Let's not get confused. Abraham would not have planted those types, or not put those types of things in the ground. And it also says here that he called upon the name of Yahweh El Olam. All right. So El Olam means like El of forever, El of everlasting, everlasting, and it goes back to like where it says that his name will be Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace, the Everlasting Father. So you can see kind of a parallel there as well. But like I said, when we read this verse, let's make sure that we understand Abraham is not planting some poles that his father would have made, right? Because you remember old, oh yeah, his daddy was an idol maker, So he's not putting in poles for worship. He's putting in trees for sustaining a family. And like I said, it says here that he called upon the name of Yahweh. So, you can't say that they did not know the name. He didn't give them the name for them to hide it. You know what I mean? What did he say? I will proclaim the name, right? So again, what's coming out of our trumpet? When, is it the name or is it a title? Is it something with power or is it just a placeholder? Is it something valuable or is it something to satisfy so we don't offend somebody? That's the question. Is the sound true or is it uncertain? You see where I'm going with this? His name, right? That's a certain sound. That's a true sound. All right. So, when we replace it, or, we replace it with a title, or whatever, when we do that, then we're giving forth an uncertain sound, something that is not quite what it should be. All right. So we're going to move to chapter 22. And let's take a look at verses 1 and 2, please.
Genesis 22, 1 and 2. And it came to pass after these things that Elohim did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of.
So it says here, take your only son, Isaac, right? It says, take your only son, Isaac, and get into the land of Moriah. All right, so Moriah, that's very, very interesting. We'll come back to that here in just a second, but it says that it came to pass that after these things that Elohim did prove Abraham. Some translations it says test, some translations it says tempt. Okay, so here's the thing. If people tell you, and the word here, the Hebrew word is the word nasa, which means to test, okay, to prove, to try. Like, what did Job say? He said, try me, right? Prove me. I'll come forth as pure gold, okay? So if anybody wants to tell you that Yahweh does not test folks, they are lying to you, all right? Because if that was not the case, then what about what happened with Job? Because he put Job right in Hasatan's hands. Did he not? He said, have you considered my servant Job? A man who is this and that, and he eschews evil, and he's all that. Have you tried him? He put him right in Hasatan's hands. All right. What about the prophets? Because they were sorely tested. All right. What about, I mean, there's so many people that Yahweh has proven and tested and put them through the ringer, But remember, it says that when he does it, like it's like when it talks about, if there's a dreamer of dreams or I mean, don't listen to him because Yahweh's testing you to see if you what? If you love him, right? So the idea that the Father does not, and this is like, people taking one verse and running with it, right? They take that verse in James and they run with it. But the thing is, the fact of the matter is, we have seen him test over and over and over and over again. Look what he's telling Abraham to do. He's telling him, take your only son that you love, take him up on top of this mountain. I want you to kill him. Okay. And here's another thing. I don't know whether we really pay that much attention to this kind of stuff, but the word Moriah talks about Mount. There's a lot of people talk about like Mount Moriah. You know what I mean? All right. But Moriah, that word, that means to be seen by El, to be seen by Yah. So he sent him up there with the express purpose to watch what he would do. Isn't that cool? He said, I'm going to send him up here. I'm going to see what he'll do. We find out later on that, when we'll get there. But I thought that was kind of cool. So he says, I'm going to test him. Right? But remember, what's it say? What does the scripture say? It says that when you're tested by Yahweh, right, that he's not going to put more on you than what you can bear. And with the tempting or the testing or the temptation or whatever translation you use, that he's going to provide what? A way of escape, which is exactly what he did for Isaac. Right? Let's go to verses 3-5, Chris.
Genesis 22, 3-5. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which Elohim had told him. Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you.
Okay, so here's the thing. He knew what Yahweh was going to require him to do, right? But do you see that there was not one cross word come out of Abraham's mouth this whole time? All he said was, here I am. So I said, take your son and go up there and kill him for a sacrifice. And then what does it say? It says that he rose up early the next day to make sure that everything was prepared. He had the wood, got his guys to come with him and all this kind of stuff. Got the donkey saddled to, He didn't argue, right? He didn't argue. He didn't hesitate, and he did not falter. And we should strive to be more like Abraham, right? Did an uncertain sound come out of his mouth? No. He said, here I am. Father said, I want you to go up here and do this thing. And what did he say? Okay. Says he even went so far as to wake up early and get everything ready, right? Let's go to Hebrews 11, 17-19, please.
Hebrews 11, 17-19. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thou seed be called. Accounting that Yahweh was able to raise him up, even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure.
So here's the thing. Can you imagine what it must be like to have faith like what Abraham had? He got up, left his home, going to a land that he didn't know where it was, right? He trusted the Father to provide him a child in his old age. The Father told him, in your seed, in Isaac, they're going to become like the sand of the sea. But now it seems like the Father's being contradictory because he's telling him, go kill him. But this wasn't about Isaac. This was about Abraham. All right. It was about Abraham. Do you trust me? Do you love me? No matter what, will you trust what I tell you to do? And that's how the Father does things. He will put us in situations where we have no choice but to trust him. And if we don't, we're going to miss the mark, right? But my favorite part of these verses is where he says, y'all stay here, right? This is in southern Philistia, okay? So he's saying, y'all wait here with the donkey. He's saying, y'all wait here. And me and the lad, me and the boy, we're going to go up and worship, and we're going to come again to you. That's what I said. He said, we're going to come back. So he knew, just like it says in Hebrews chapter 11, he knew. He said he had given to him before, where it says in the similitude of a figure, right? Because it wasn't Isaac that was dead. It was Abraham and Sarah that were dead. Their bodies were dead. Yet life came from that. So if Isaac's physical body had been killed, right? Abraham had the faith to know that they give it to us when our bodies were dead, so he can bring him back to life. So it was no big stretch for him to tell the young men, hey, we're going to come back. We'll be back in just a little bit. Like I said, to be able to have that kind of faith, that's much more than a grain of a mustard seed, don't you think? Somebody tells me you got to take Chris up on top of a mountain and sacrifice. I don't think I can do that. Just saying, I don't think I could do it. I'd be like, now wait a minute, now. But again, like I said, he told him, he said, we'll be back. Man, that right there is incredible. Just incredible. 6 through 8, please, Chris.
Genesis 22, 6 through 8. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son. And he took the fire in his hand and a knife. And they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together.
So, just as an aside, Isaac knew that they needed a lamb for an offering, that they needed a clean animal for an offering, right? So that shows you right there that clean and unclean was known from the start, and that it wasn't just something that Moses came up with. Okay. Kills me when people talk, oh man, that's Moses. Moses did. No, been around a whole lot like back with Adam and Eve. Cain and Abel, you know what I mean? Abel knew what was right to sacrifice, you know what I'm saying? But here's the thing that we gotta remember too. He told him, he said, I see the wood and I see the fire and I see that knife in your hand. You know what I mean? But where's the sacrifice? Abraham said, my son, he's going to provide himself a lamb. Isaac give him the side eye real quick. What you talking about, Daddy? No, but that's the thing. He told him, he said, he understood that in this life, sometimes we're going to have to make sacrifices. right? And we're going to lose family and friends. If we walk this way, we know for certain that we will lose family and friends, right? And we will know that we lose a lot of things. But that's what, he's talking about. Count it all joy, right? Shaul said that all these things that he counted them as what? As dung, right? And the things that we lose are fertilizer for us. They'll help us to grow. They'll make us more fruitful, right? The things that we've lost, right? Family, friends, in-laws, outlaws, bylaws, you name it. The things that we've lost, those things help us to become stronger. I know that sounds contradictory, but it does. Because what happens? Well, we know that the lamb does, or that the ram appears in the thicket, right? We know that. We've read through these. We've read through, the Torah so many times. We know exactly what's going to happen. Kids are taught it in Sunday schools and stuff like that. Okay, so we know that happens. But don't think that he can't give you better than what you give up here. Let's go to Luke 18, 29 and 30.
Luke 18, 29, 30. And he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, there is no man that hath left house or parents or brethren or wife or children for the kingdom of Yahweh's sake, who shall not receive manifold more in this present time, and in the world to come life everlasting.
And in the world to come life everlasting. So like I said, sometimes we got to make sacrifices. There's just no way around it, right? We got to make sacrifices. But here's what we need to remember. He is more than able to give us way better than what we've lost. Amen? All right? Well, I know we quoted a lot. But, it says, eye had not seen, ear had not heard. Neither has it entered into the heart of man what Yahweh has prepared for them that love him. So if I give these things up in order to walk closer to him, if I give up these things that are hindering me in order to walk with him, how can I not receive better than what I've given up? Does that make sense to everybody? All right. He said, shall not receive more than this, and everlasting life in the world to come. So that's my point. When it comes to losing something, yes, it hurts, but we keep moving. We keep walking, right? Because we've all lost family and friends. Amen? We've all lost these things. Vicky, you lost your house, but wasn't it better to lose that house and now look at what you have now? But see, that's my point. What I'm telling you is it's Bible, it's scripture, y'all. We see it even you saw it in your own life. What did Chanel tell you?
She said, "Thank you for getting me out of that miserable place."
When now my niece talking about the house that she grew up in, she left from there and went to go live with Mom and Rebby. And years after the fact, she sends her a message out of the blue that says, "Thank you for taking me in and getting me out of that miserable place I was in." Right? Said that sometimes she still has nightmares about how they were treated, how she was treated. Look at where he brought you from, Alicia. You lost family that you had there, right? You basically come here with what you had on your back. You know what I mean? But now you've got your own place. You come and go as you please. You've got control over your own money. You know what I'm saying? That's the point. Sometimes we got to give up something. We've got to sacrifice. We got to go through something painful in order to make us grow. And in order for him to bless us. Do you think that that vine likes getting cut back? Probably not. But if the vine isn't pruned, it's not going to grow. Any of y'all work with plants and stuff? I got a black thumb. I'm not good. I'll kill them quick. But people with like in vineyards and stuff, if they don't pinch back the suckers that are on those vines, they're not going to get the harvest out. Right? Dad, you taught a lesson a long time ago about the wheat. You remember that? But this wheat, it's got to get threshed out of these ears. Right? And then what's got to happen to it? It's got to get ground up and sifted. And then it's got to get mixed with some other stuff. And then it's got to get thrown in a fire. You think any of that is, it's wheat, okay? But I'm saying, do you think any of that is pleasant? I don't think so. I tell you, no, it's got to get thrown in a fire. But when it comes out, man, you got this big, beautiful loaf of bread, and it can nourish everybody in the house. And although the wheat had to go through some steps that were uncomfortable, at the end, it does what? It fulfills its purpose. And it's the same thing with us. There are things that we're going to have to go through that are uncomfortable. And it's not always easy, right? But that's part of enduring. That's part of overcoming. We get past that stuff right there. But then when we get to the end of the road and we fulfill our purpose, look what's waiting on us there. You see what I'm saying? So, we can't worry about the things that we have lost or will lose, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Like I said, we're going to lose friends. We're going to lose family. Family, most of all. It seems like, and I don't understand why, but family always seems to be the ones that they hurt you the most. And they're supposed to be the ones who love you no matter what, but they'll hurt you the quickest and and give you the worst hurt. I can deal with a guy I thought was my friend talking bad about me, but if my family talks about it, then that hurts. That cuts a little deeper. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, we have to remember that these are all stuff we were told that it was going to happen. Okay, verses 9 through 14.
Genesis 22, 9 through 14. And they came to the place which Elohim had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of Yahweh called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest Elohim, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Yahweh Yireh, as it is said to this day, on the mountain Yahweh provides.
Okay, so he's done laid the wood on the altar, and he's getting ready to do the deed. And the angel could have said, Hey, don't do it. I wanted to see what you were going to do, right? Well, like I said, he had to trust his daddy. You know what I'm saying? He had to trust his father. And it's just, there's a lot of faith going on here that is unlike anything that we can even hope to understand. I think it's different though when you can hear him talking to you from heaven and things like, you know what I mean? Maybe that would make it a little more, we take a lot of things for granted. But the important thing is that Abraham didn't hold anything back. And when he asks us to do something, we can't hold anything back. We have to follow the lead, right? So when he says, this is what I want you to do, we need to give it our all. And the thing that we need to remember here is that he was rewarded for his obedience. All right, we've talked about it. When we're obedient and we send that out, then the good things come back. When we're rebellious, right, and we send that out, then the not so good rewards come back, right? So when we're tested, this is what we talked about a few weeks ago. We need to learn how to discern, right? We need to know what is of Yahweh and what is not of Yahweh. And if we feel like we're being tested, we need to look at the test and see what it's asking us to do. What is, you know what I mean? Is it really of Yahweh, or is it something that I cooked up because I eat some raviolis at 11 o'clock at night right before I went to bed? You know what I mean? We gotta be clear. And if it is of Yahweh, we need to know that he's going to make a way in the situation. And we trust him in it. This was a problem for me back when we were in the church, because sitting back there in the pew, a lot of times you could see what people thought was a move, right? But it was strictly emotionalism. And, when we get caught up in the moment, we do some things. We knew people that didn't have money to pay the light bill, but they're throwing all their money at the feet of this evangelist because he told them to. Well, I got a hard time with that. I have a hard time with things like that. That's called fleecing the flock. You know what I mean? To me, that's a hireling. That's not a good shepherd. That's a hireling. But like I said, when we have, when we know that it's of him, we need to give it all. Give our all, whatever it is. Okay, time, whatever. We need to know that if he puts us in a situation, he's going to provide us a way out of it. All right, 15 through 19.
Genesis 22, 15 through 19. And the angel of Yahweh called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and said, By myself I have sworn, saith Yahweh, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba.
Okay. Ma'am. Well, that's true. That's true. But he did tell him, he said, we're coming back. And we know that he did come back because later on you've got Jacob. You know what I mean? So we know that. It doesn't say specifically that he came back with him, but we know he did because that's where Jacob comes from. But anyway, I want to jump back to verse 12 for just 1 second. And where he tells him, he says, do not put your hand upon the lad, neither do anything to him. And then Yahweh says, for now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing that you've not withheld your son, your only, from me. Okay, so this is another thing that we were taught a long time ago. The fact that Yahweh knows everything in theory. But the reason why he puts us through trials and testing is because he wants to know what we're going to do when faced with the situation. Amen? That's what he wants to know. He wants to see us put it into practice. So if we say that we're doing this, we need to, when it comes time to prove it, that's got to be what comes out. Scriptures say that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? So if it's in your heart to do it, that's what's going to come out. So it was in Abraham's heart to do what? To do what Yahweh told him to do. And here in verses 15 through 19, we see the blessings of Abraham, where he says that in blessing, I'll bless you, and in multiplying, I'll multiply your seed as the stars of heaven and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and your seed shall possess the gate of his enemies, and your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed because you've obeyed my voice. We have been scattered from hither to yon, right? But here's the Father just, promising again, in all nations of the earth, your seed is going to be blessed. Simply because he did what? Because he obeyed his voice. All right? Because he obeyed his voice. And this story here also is a kind of a parallel with Yahweh as well, because you have the Father, right? Abraham, and you've got Yahweh. And in order to satisfy this test, what did Abraham have to do? He had to give up his only son, his son that he loved. And the scriptures tell us that Yahweh so loved the world that he did what? He gave his only begotten son, that whosoever should believe on him should not perish, right? But have everlasting life. So there's a parallel here. Remember, we talk about patterns a lot. I know you guys get sick and tired of hearing me talk about patterns, but I can't help it because that's what really broke it all open for me. The teaching on patterns is that tool right there is what really broke everything open for me. And there's patterns all throughout the word. And even here, when we're talking about this up here on top of Mount Moriah, the Father gave his son as a sacrifice. And we see that again later on down the road, several thousand years afterward. But again, it repeats itself. But through this entire thing, you don't ever hear one cross word or one hesitation or one word of protest come out of Abraham's mouth this whole time. So, again, what are we saying? What's in the heart is what's going to come out. So is the sound that we're giving out, is it sure? Is it pure? Right? Is it the real deal? Or is it an uncertain sound full of teachings of man or traditions or, trying to fix it on your own? With what sound are we getting there? But we know in order for the people to be saved that the sound has to be clear. Can't be muddied up, can't be mixed up, can't be tainted and mingled. Can't have a bit of this and a piece of that and a little bit of that over there. It's be like, I don't know, just trying to like take three songs and just kind of mush them all together. You know what I mean? And it's going to come out jumbled and we call it a muddled mass of confusion. It's going to come out. So let's, when we play our trumpet, when we let our trumpet speak, let's let it speak, the real deal, not something that's been tarnished by anything else. Does that make sense? I'm trying to say. So anyway, that's going to do it for today.